Welcome to Fantasy Football Court. We are four regular guys talking all things fantasy football. Unlike some other shows, we only talk about fantasy football. We make our arguments, we present our cases, and you are the judge. We are all in the same fantasy football league. The people are real, the league is real, and the trash talking is real. Court is now in Welcome session. To Fantasy Football Court again. We're so glad to have you. My name is Charles.
My name is Andrew.
My name is Nick.
And this is Jeremy.
And today we're going to put the Denver Broncos on the stand, and we're going to cross-examine them and question them at every position. Before we get started with our initial thoughts of the Denver Broncos, stay tuned. We are going to have, in future videos, a breakdown of every position, where we rank the quarterbacks, where we rank the running backs, where we rank the wide receivers, and all those things. So we're getting questions and comments about that, but that is going to happen. But we want to cover every team, and by covering every team, it forces us to talk about every position on every team, and we think that's important. Jeremy, what's your initial thoughts of the Denver Broncos?
I'm not real high on anybody on this team. I understand they have the wide receivers, but we've said this 40 times already this year. They're only as good as the quarterback.
Right.
Yeah.
Nick?
Questionable on offense and great defense.
Yeah, I'm not going to belabor the point. I pretty much agree with them. Just not really sure what we're going to get out of the Denver Broncos this year.
Defense, I think, is really good, as Nick said, and I wish Peyton Manning would come back.
Well, he's a
last year he didn't look good.
He's a Denver Bronco fan, but in fantasy football, you can't play with your heart. You have to play with your brain. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with the quarterback, and I'm going to start with Jeremy first on this. What do you think of Trevier Simmons and Paxton Lynch?
Question marks.
Both of them? Who do you
Both
see starting?
of them. I think Simeon had moments of brilliance last year. He had 3 games where he had 300-plus yards. So, I don't think that he is – I like him better than I do Lynch. But with that said,
he's not proven yet.
I'm not a fan of either one.
Neither quarterback is being taken in the average draft position that's happening now. Nick, any thoughts on the quarterback?
My interesting thing is I'm interested to see what Chad Kelly does. Mr. Irrelevant. He was he was hurt, so nobody was really high on him in draft. He was very good at Ole Miss. I'm just interested if he makes a splash in that quarterback competition. He just now started throwing the ball, I think, last week. So I'm interested to see if he climbs up the depth chart. I actually like him better than Paxton Lynch. I'm not so sure that he might get the nod over, like a Trevor Siemian. I think Trevor Siemian showed flashes last year, but they lost Russell Okung, the offensive tackle, and that's just going to hurt a lot. They signed 2 offensive linemen, a reserve from Oakland and Ron Leary from Dallas, but, with that losing Russell Okung pretty much hurts that more than anything. So I think we'll see how their offensive line does this year.
What do you think about the quarterback position?
I agree with Nick. I think we end up seeing Chad Kelly before the year's over.
Yeah, I think we do too.
I think we end up seeing him play just because the other 2 guys are going to struggle. That offensive line is going to struggle, and I think we're going to end up seeing Chad Kelly. When it comes to fantasy football, I don't want any of their quarterbacks.
Did you not watch Kelly in college football? He is going to struggle mightily. Here's why. His release point when he releases the ball, we're going to get technical for a second, but his release point is right here, not up here. When you're at, and if you notice, when they had played teams that had good NFL quality defensive linemen, he got the ball batted down an awful lot. Yeah. So because his release point's low, I think he's going to struggle this year with his release point until he gets that arm up high and gets that shoulder and elbow up. He's going to struggle and get a lot of passes back.
I didn't say he was going to do good. Yeah. I just think we're going to end up seeing him.
Because the other 2 aren't going to produce like that.
If they do have some offensive line issues, he's got that ability to scramble around. If we might, just because of that ability, we might see him.
But the NFL was definitely concerned about him with them being taken. He was the last player, correct? Drafted.
Right. But he did have a shoulder injury.
Right,
yeah.
Right. All right, stay away from the Denver quarterback position. I don't think any of us even want these guys as our second or third quarterback on our roster.
Stay away from this next position, too.
Stay away from what?
This next position, too.
The running back. Well, no, he'll be drafted. Since you brought it up, we'll go ahead and start with you with the running backs.
C.J. Anderson was injured in Week 7. If you had him, which I did, in weeks 1 and 2, going into week 3, he was ecstatic. He was the number 1 running back at that point. He had 5 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns in 2 games. He was looking good, and then just the wheels fell off. Devontae Booker came in after C.J. Anderson's injury and did not do much better than C.J. So then they threw in a wrench this year by taking Jamal Charles. And he's old. He may be a flyer you can get if you just want to take a chance on somebody, but it's just too crowded for my liking. Too crowded with subpar talent.
Nick?
I mean, I wouldn't mind having C.J. Anderson this year. That's about the only one I would really look at. Jamal Charles, I don't think he'll be a factor. Devontae Booker, I don't really see much out of him. They traded away Kabri Bibbs, who had some good games last year, but I think really to tell you the truth, it's C.J. Anderson's backfield, and I think if he can show separation between the rest of the backfield, I think he'll get a lot more touches this year.
I really don't think Jamal Charles is going to be much of an impact on their offense at all.
I don't.
I don't think he can stay healthy, to be honest with you, even through practices and everything. I do not want any of the Broncos backfield.
No, I agree. C.J. Anderson has value somewhere, but where I think he's worth, I think he'll be gone before. I think somebody else will take him before.
Somebody's going to draft him, but I'm not really interested.
He's currently the 25th running back taken off the board. And what you're probably talking 3rd, 4th round possibly. And he is a starting running back in the NFL. I mean, he definitely has some value. It's just a matter of where you currently have him, 4th round.
Right now, I have an ADP is the 5th round. So,
yeah.
But I'm not looking at him that high. I might late 6th, maybe 7th. I might take a look at him.
He won't. He'll be gone by then. I think.
Yeah.
Well, somebody will take him.
And whenever we're talking about running backs, and we talked about quarterbacks before them, when you're not sure that the quarterback's going to finish out the season, and you're not sure if we're going to see 2 or 3 quarterbacks get an opportunity,
it's hard.
That hurts the running back position.
That hurts the receivers.
It hurts everybody.
Tight end. It hurts the kicker.
But
hurts the
they throw
defense.
but with that quarterback, you don't know which quarterback. You think he'll get a lot of receptions just being a safety valve.
He might be, but I don't know.
Yeah.
If Denver comes
He
out,
had 1 receiving touchdown last year.
if Denver comes out and that was on a small little, almost like a toss play, first game of the year. But if Denver comes out and says Trevor Siemian is going to be our quarterback for the year during the preseason or at the end of preseason, I think everybody's value bumps.
It does.
But
And
unless
right now, he's the man.
I think Siemian, I'm higher on Siemian than any other quarterback they have. I think he could be a good game manager, which would help the running backs.
All right, so just before we move on to wide receivers, is C.J. Anderson somebody you wouldn't mind having on your team?
I don't want him.
At the right location.
At the right location,
Yeah.
I agree. But it's going to have to be lower than probably where he's going to be taken.
I'm not interested.
Yeah, let somebody else take him, and you get another different player. All right, we're going to move on to the wide receivers now, and I'm going to start with Nick with this one.
All right, so their number 2 receivers, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Demaryius Thomas has the potential to be a great wide receiver, but of course they're only as good as their quarterback is. And
Right.
I do not see much production. I'm not really touching their receivers this year unless the Trevor Siemian starts stepping up, or they have somebody that steps up and shows consistency that they're able to consistently get the ball to the receivers, and they're able to put some points up. And you're not really going to see that before your draft, so I'm not really going to put much value into a Denver receiver.
Jeremy?
Demaryius Thomas has some sort of connection with Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian, when he was in, Demaryius Thomas got twice the targets that Emmanuel Sanders
It's the
did.
same with Peyton too. There's just a trust thing.
And
Demaryius
so
Thomas is an
He's a
elite
good receiver.
So with that said, because I remember a game last year. I played Andrew. Andrew had Demaryius Thomas. I had Emmanuel Sanders, and Demaryius Thomas saw 2 to 3 times the touches that Emmanuel Sanders did, and it just killed me all year. He had 90-plus catches last year with 1,000 yards. Though his problem was he had a career low in TDs. That was the issue.
Thoughts on the receivers?
Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, those are the only two that we're talking about because those are the only two guys that will get drafted. But I just don't know.
They don't even have a tight end anymore.
One thing though that they do have their offensive coordinator Mike McCoy. He's the new offensive coordinator, came in from San Diego. He is more of a passing guy in his offense, as we've seen in the past. And so for that reason, it could be Demaryius Thomas is still going to be a top.
Well, he's going in the
top wide receiver.
He's currently the 15th receiver taken off the board, so he'll go in the second round.
He's a big guy. He's going to get targeted a lot. I think he'd be safe to have on your team.
All right, since we were talking about the Demaryius Thomas and the 15th pick, let's say it's middle of the second round, it's coming back around. You've already got your running back or your position. Is Demaryius Thomas somebody you would think about in the mid to end second round?
I think that's, if he's 15, a wide receiver, I think mid-second round's a little higher than where he would go because I think you're going to have 10, 12 running backs. I think you're going to have 10 running backs taken.
Well, he doesn't make it out of the second round.
Well, if you take 10 running backs, then he's the 15th wide receiver that has him at pick 25. So I think end of the second round, early third, and I'm okay taking him more or so early third than second.
Right now in my the ADP board I'm looking at, it has in the middle of the third round. So that I still don't even look at that there because they didn't really improve their offensive line, and I think whoever's back there is going to have a hard time getting them the ball.
I think they both get 100+ targets this year because there's nobody else to throw to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not.
Even if Demaryius has 100 catches this year and only averages 5 yards a catch, he's still a top 15 receiver in a PPR league.
I don't take him until late third, early fourth, I think.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on now to the tight ends. I'm going to let Jeremy start with the tight ends.
There's not a tight end on this roster I'm excited about.
Currently, there's no tight ends taken off this team in the.
You got Virgil Green, Jeff Ironman, AJ Derby, and Jake Butt. None of them are draftable, in my opinion.
I think Jake Butt.
Yeah.
He's going to move up the depth chart.
Yeah, I think once Jake Butt gets healthy, he's going to be their tight end. I think you're probably not going to see anything out of him for a little while, but maybe toward the end of the season, you might could take pick him up off the waiver wire, and he might pay off for you at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree with the same thing. I don't have anything to add to that other than, I think Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas are going to be the main targets. The tight end's not going to be
maybe at the end of the season he might be the number 3 receiver.
Maybe.
All right, let's move on to the defense, and I'll start with Nick on that one.
Great defense, probably maybe arguably number 1 defense in fantasy. I'd still probably put them the top 5 defense. Their offense is going to hurt them some. I don't know if I put them number 1, number 2, but they're probably somewhere up there. I don't know where I would put them, but they're still the top 5 defense.
Jeremy?
They struggled with a run a little bit last year.
They did.
So that's something to keep an eye on early in the season because that'll affect their value moving forward. But like I said, I will say this, they're probably the most exciting position, or they're the position I would be most excited to have on my roster as a Denver Bronco.
Yeah,
there's not another player that I'd be as excited to have on my roster as the defense.
I agree. Defense number 1, they're the best one in the defense right now, in my opinion.
The only thing that worries me about their defense, he alluded to it a while ago, was just that offense. I'm not sure that offense is not going to keep their defense on the field by not moving the chains and
I just see their offense taking a step back this year.
All right, the next position we cover, and we do it very lightly or do it not too much in depth because we don't really put much emphasis, but you got to have them on your roster, and that's a kicker. Who do we have for kicker?
Brandon McManus. The Broncos last year were the 28th in the league in red zone touchdowns, which meant
that's good.
Brandon McManus
I had him on my roster.
Fantasy points because of that. If we see a similar thing this year, he's going to be a good one. Now with distance, he's not too good. He's also a mile-high stadium. That altitude affects a kicker, and I still don't see him as being a top-tier kicker, even with those numbers.
Yeah. Nick?
No really thoughts on the kicker. I think he's still maybe a top 10 kicker, but
I think with him, he has potential to be a top level kicker. I just think he's in a bad weather situation with altitude and being outdoors and the snow and wind there at the higher elevations, just think he's in a bad situation to be real good.
Yeah, I don't really have much thought on it other than what they've said. So, all right, let's just give a brief rundown after we've talked a little bit about the Denver Broncos. Just a brief overview of what you're thinking.
A brief overview is I think they've got a great defense, and that's about it for me on the Denver Broncos.
Yeah,
I hope they do good personally because it's my favorite team. So.
If C.J. Anderson falls to me at the right spot, if the receivers fall to me at the right spot, Demaryius Thomas, then I'm interested. But it's going to have to fall probably more than what they are going in their ADP for me to be interested.
Yeah, same great defense, and they'd have to fall to the right spot.
Yeah.
Defense! That's all they got.
All right, hit us up on social media.
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all of those are at FF Court.
If you have any questions, any content you want us to cover, anybody you want us to break down, just let us know via our social media, and we'll be happy to do something in an upcoming episode and let you and evaluate or answer the question that you have.
All right, court is adjourned.